Welcome to Amplify, the podcast for accounting marketers. I'm your host, Mike Jones, CEO and Managing Partner of Resound, a brand consultancy for B2B professional services. And today I am super excited to dive into the topic of recruitment strategies with our guest, Jeff Phillips, founder of Accountingfly, the recruitment platform that is practically single-handedly awakening the profession to the enormous potential of hiring staff remotely. I love that quote. That's such a great quote. I think that was actually in Accounting Today. Is that right?
Hey, Mike, that is right. I don't have the writing skills to produce that. I liked it too, so I borrowed it from Accounting Today. So thanks to Dan Hood for that line.
Yeah, and more than founder of Accountingfly, you're also now CEO of Paget Business Services. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah. So still very involved in Accountingfly. It's hiring and building teams and helping businesses work through that relationship, and hiring is such a core passion to me. But I was presented with an unbelievable opportunity to take over Paget about 2 years ago. I jumped at the chance. My team at Accountingfly was ready and ready to take that business over. And so it's kind of an odd career situation, and it really, really works. So I love it.
That's awesome. Well, I just appreciate you coming on the show today, and I'm excited for this conversation. Obviously, we're going to dig in on recruitment. I'm sure we'll cover a lot of other things as well, but yeah. You've been handling recruitment strategy for over 20 years now in various capacities. How has recruitment changed, especially in the accounting world in those 20 years?
Yeah, and I'll give you a little perspective. So I was in sales for Monster.com from 2004 to 2011 or thereabouts, and then founded Accountingfly, which is I took everything I learned at Monster there. So a lot's changed over the last 20 years. I mean, I think about really the advent of the internet into the recruiting space, the advent of the job board. Monster invented the job board category, but that was probably 30 years ago. Maybe late 90s. So for me, I think what our audience probably needs to know the biggest changes are, because they feel these changes, is the job board losing its impact on being able to recruit accounting. I noticed that even working at Monster. One of the big four was one of my biggest clients, and we were seeing something happening. We're like, we do great for Verizon Wireless or AT&T or, different, non-accounting firms, but like we worked with H&R Block, we work with a big four firm, and we see numbers trailing. So I think like job board losing some of its impact. Clearly the rise of remote work is a massive solution and change in the profession, which was one, by the way, that just hit us like a ton of bricks. We didn't get into this business when we started Accountingfly to be a remote work platform. We got in, our mission was to solve the talent crisis that was already happening in the accounting profession. And honestly, through failing through multiple versions of our business model, we landed on this solution called, if you stop caring where your next hire works, you're going to hire somebody, and if you care where they work, you're not going to hire somebody. So we landed on that. And then I think the third biggest just change is the Great Resignation. Is just whatever's happened since the pandemic hit, probably the pandemic and the after effects of that. We're still sorting out what that change is. But gosh, when you think about the last 20 years in our careers, everybody that's listening, those are some big shifts, aren't they?
Very big shifts. Yeah, I wonder about kind of that first point you made about job boards. I think I've seen this too in my career. I mean, my firm hires people, and I consult with our clients on hiring people. And there is kind of a stigma, right, with job boards. Like, I think, people looking for their next career or looking for their next job, there is a little bit of stigma when it comes to like posting on a resume board, or like, I'd rather be headhunted. Maybe there's some ego pride in there or something. I don't know what that is, but I don't know if that's what you've seen, or it's just, maybe it's the proliferation and there's just so many places now. It's super competitive.
It's just such a massive market of people that you're not able to zero in, I think, on who you're trying to get. But I'll tell you something interesting I learned about the value of branding, since this is a marketing podcast, in recruiting. We did a side-by-side comparison. This is like 10 years ago on Indeed for a job board. On a job board, Indeed, where we posted a job that was written by the HR department of a top 30 CPA firm. Put that on Indeed, and we paid for the trial. And then we paid copywriters to rebrand the same job posting and put it on the same city, the same job title, the same job.
Yep.
We just did it our way, and then did the HR version. And so we counted the number of qualified candidates that we got from the experiment. We got more candidates, but that wasn't surprising. We got 80 times more viable candidates than the HR job function. Yeah. So I can say job boards are dead, but also like
it's what you put into it too.
Yeah. That's the power of marketing in recruitment, is it is how important carefully crafted messaging is, and focusing on benefits, and you got to have something to sell. So that to me is a principle of recruiting and marketing. It's just excellent communication.
Yeah. Knowing who you're targeting, knowing what they're really looking for, the problem they're trying to solve, and what you're going to deliver on. I mean, it's like marketing 101. And tell a great story.
And well, I just love what you said. I mean, understand your audience and solve what problems they're trying to solve. When we talk about the third big shift, the Great Resignation, I think as an industry, we failed to solve the things that the candidates wanted to solve. And that's a big reason why I think we have found ourselves here.
Yep. Yeah. Talk to me a little bit about that. What are you seeing kind of over the last 2 years in terms of, just this massive kind of shift with the Great Resignation?
It's profound. Zoom out a little bit, if you'll permit me, and give a little bit of background. We were already experiencing high turnover in the CPA profession before, March of 2020. We were probably seeing, with firms over $20 million in revenue, probably in the 18 to 20% annual turnover. So that means every year, 20% of your CPA or accounting staff was leaving. And if your firm was growing, you had to replace all those people and hire to meet the growth. And nobody was really effectively doing that. And remember, we got in the business to try and solve a talent crisis. The PCPS survey that the AICPA did every year, the issue survey, finding qualified talent was top 3 issue every year that I can think of, starting in like 2011. So it was already this big problem. People were already sort of dancing with the idea of it being okay to like just leave the profession because it wasn't meeting those problems and challenges you talked about. So there's only 660,000 CPAs in the United States to begin with. When you zoom out and think about how many people just in the accounting profession, I think it's 1.4 million, 1.3 million. That includes bookkeepers and payroll clerks. So as millennials got into our job market, or as millennials became the leading cohort inside our labor pool, they basically said, look, I want to work where I want to work and when I want to work. And that was bumping up against an industry that traditionally said, you're going to work where we tell you to work, when we tell you to work. And you're always going to be on call, and we're not going to pay you very much. And but if you stick around for 20 years, then you'll make some money. And I think what was happening was there was already sliding like off a cliff. The pandemic happened, everybody reevaluated their lives and their careers. And we don't really know how far up turnover has gone during the pandemic. So I am basing this all on a gut feel here, but sure, on an anecdotal conversation I'm having with hundreds of firm leaders and the one that I run. But I think that little drip turned into a waterfall of talent reevaluating their careers. And I know a firm in a small town that's been in that city for about 70 years that lost 2/3 of their audit team to larger firms just poaching and giving remote opportunities in the profession, mind you, at a 30% pay bump. So this
How do you compete with that? My goodness.
Well, it was too late for them to compete with
Yep.
it, but they could have. I mean,
yeah. I mean, you really have to flip your model.
Yeah, you're going to flip the model. So look, I mean, that's what we're dealing with. I don't think it's going away. I mean, there's this great Korn Ferry study that says the global talent shortage is the name of the study, and 10 years from now, there's going to be 50 million job openings in the knowledge economy that can't be filled. There'll be 50 million more jobs open than there are people to fill them globally. Yep. And we're feeling that on this local level in accounting.
Yep.
So that's not theoretical. I've always been saying that was not theoretical, but my audience would say that is theoretical. It was very theoretical. Then the Great Resignation happened. Like, help me, what do I do?
Yeah, I think it sped up what was already coming, as you just said, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Some of that's demographic, right? You have the largest cohort in generational history in the last 200 years. The baby boomers retire out. And we talked about this on the last episode with Mark Horstman. He's just, from his perspective, working with a lot of executives. He's like, man, I saw so many people who were kind of almost on the verge of retirement check out early in 2020 and just say, hey, we're done. Like this is the best time for me to get out. I was going to wait another couple of years, maybe 2 to 4 more years, but I'd rather just do it now. And that talent, there's no pipeline to fill all of that talent all the way up the ladder. Right. And so you get down to the bottom and you're like, if you're talking entry level, if you're talking, college grads coming out, there just isn't enough of them to fill that entire need, at least for the next 5 to 10 years. So
one of the consequences of that is, what I call the death spiral, which is you lose a key person on a small accounting team, and then the work keeps growing because the industry is growing. So you don't recapture the person that you've lost, and you got more work. So you leave behind this team that is now stressed, overworked, and trying to do their own jobs plus the job of the person that left. And then somebody else leaves and somebody else leaves. And so I know and really have empathy for the firms and firm leaders who are in that position, and that's happening. It's really tough on these folks. So that we got to find a way to get ahead of that and stop the carnage.
Yeah, no, that hurts, especially I think for smaller firms. This has just been really hard.
It's been so hard on them, and I've had some heartbreaking conversations with firm owners who were putting in a big, they were putting in tons of hours just running their firm, and then they lose a person and another person, and it all of a sudden, if you're a 7-person firm and you lose 2 people, it's really, really tough.
So how do you think firms can start to move this forward in a positive direction?
Yeah,
knowing that, okay, there just isn't going to be enough talent for the job openings. Like, how can we do this different? And there's got to be, what's the innovation that we got to bring to the table?
I mean, you said it when we were talking about copywriting for job postings. You said, understand your audience and meet their needs. That's never going to change. That's always going to be the principle you got to follow. And that's how you address the pain point. If you want people to trade their career to come work for you, we only get one career. You might have, 10 jobs in your career. You got to have something they want. And I promise the answer is not average pay, long hours, low ability to take care of personal needs, low training, and lack of clarity about how to do my job. So you got to meet the needs, and those basic needs are time and location flexibility. They are the desire to have a career plan, clarity on where we're working, what I'm going to be doing, training, get it done, and above all else, and we need to get ahead of this. Is compensation has to be market rate. We're not getting any cheap deals anymore.
Yep.
And if you have to change your business model to hire people, then change your business model to hire people, because you have to have people to run the firm, right? And so we're going to have to pay at the market to get the people.
Yeah. I mean, your business at the end of the day is the talent, right?
in our business, it is. We're not building technology.
Nope. If you have an accounting firm, you're essentially selling, expertise and time. And if you don't have that talent, then you don't have a business.
But the way to look at it is an opportunity. There are people that love accounting. They love the noble service to businesses and people, to do something for those clients that they cannot do themselves. At our firm, we had clients who got the benefit of the PPP program and the employee retention credit program, and were saving their businesses. And our owners at Paget, our office owners, took a lot of satisfaction and made a lot of money being of great service to America's small business. I mean, they were truly providing business triage during the pandemic, and the profession's brand and the love for the profession, I think, grew tremendously, and the respect for our profession grew tremendously during that time. So it's an opportunity just to shift how we think about recruiting talent, because not everybody will be willing to take those painful steps to change. So fine, don't let them. But if you do, it's a good moment to seize. Yeah.
And I think there's something in what you just shared too about, linking the job to this, to the end, right? Not just I'm delivering on my own personal needs by working this job, or I'm fulfilling a career, desire, but also there are people on the very end of this, right? The clients and their businesses and the customers and the people and their employees that they're serving, that you're benefiting. And I think that story is one that I'm hearing more and more of, but I'm man, I really want to see more of that come through. That when you're talking about attracting young talent, you've got to connect the dots to something larger than just a paycheck and some benefits. And even the ideas of flexibility, I think, which are really critical. We've never been more able to deliver on that. Right. But even in that, I think I look at firms you're going to be competing against a lot of firms who can also offer that flexibility. As we move forward, right? That's just going to become more and more viable for firms to figure out and how to do it. So what else can you deliver? Well, you can deliver that you actually help people. And you got to start telling that story of, connecting the dots for your staff and for those that you're recruiting in, that this isn't just about a job. This is about actually delivering value to people in your daily life.
I completely agree with that. You're presenting a value proposition for a career in accounting, which right now is weak. And part of the reason why it's weak is because, are we doing a good job connecting the dots of the kind of the noble aspect of what it is that people do? This country runs on small businesses and their success. And it's a miracle, really, if you think about it, about what it can do. But they need this trusted advisor who can help you do anything from pay taxes to create a budget to help plan for goal setting and save your business through the PPP when necessary and things like that. It's pretty exciting, And we're just talking about small business accounting. When you think about sort of the larger things that are going on at the larger firms, I mean, it's exciting.
It is. There's so many stories that are there. They just need to be told. I don't think it's for lack of, the stories. It's just putting them together in a cohesive way. And
if only there was an organization that existed for the service of storytelling in the accounting profession.
Well, yeah, I don't need to toot my own horn. But I would say every firm that has a marketer has a storyteller, right?
Absolutely.
And so for those that are listening that are on the marketing side, your job just got bigger. I think we all know that.
We need you.
We all know that. You know that. You're feeling it because HR is asking you. But I think there's an opportunity to say, this is about storytelling in a way that is telling the story of the brand, both to clients and to prospects, in a way that makes sense to everyone, right? You're not telling two stories. It's the same. It's two sides of the same coin. And so I would encourage everyone to just continue to keep pushing, thinking harder about, that you're telling great stories, even when you're putting out. I love that you talk about, that exercise you did with when you take a professional copywriter and you put them in front of a job posting and you say, rewrite this, and it, does 80 times better qualified leads. It's like, I don't know any better like data point that you need than just like, man. And that's such a simple little thing. It's not hard.
Now tie your values and your values to customers, your values to your employees, and your values in terms of your prospective employees and your prospective customers and your existing staff, and tie that into the unifying message and stories that make up your firm.
Yep.
And if you're not modern in the sense that you're not addressing the needs of the current prospective employees, and by the way, the current prospective customers too.
Yep.
You know what? Customers want flexibility. They want you to be advanced in technology. They want trusted advisors. They want clear communication. They want you to be modern as well, right? So it's all combined in the same package. But my point is, if you're not there, then you need to go through the change management in order to tell a better story. You gotta have a good product to sell to be a good recruiter.
Yep, you absolutely do. And hopefully that story connects all the dots.
I remember.
Yeah, go ahead.
You said, where do you start? And you start with remote work, and it doesn't. And I don't say a firm needs to be remote for the sake of it. You just can't predictably and reliably hire an audit manager or a tax senior in any location in America today, within a 5 or 6 week period. So if you can't do that, you have one other option, really, is to expand your job search to the entire pool of candidates in the United States. By doing that, you get more at-bats. You just get more opportunities. And the other benefit of that is you're communicating that you're a progressive workplace that isn't so tied to the location. It doesn't mean sell your office and stop having meetings and everybody's going to work from their house. It's a no-brainer way to begin this journey is just by not being so tied to the location of the headquarters of your business.
Yeah, I mean, just personal attestation to that. I did that with our firm about 4 years ago. And we were not prescient. We did not know there was a pandemic coming. We just kind of saw the trends in the industry and in the kind of creative world, creative professionals, you've run into similar issues, right? People want highly, highly valued flexibility, ability to work from where they want, when they want. And we really looked and said, we need to flip that model in our business. I had been hiring in-house from one office for 7-8 years and really knew that we needed to make that change. And it's a big risk. I think any firm looking at doing that, you look at like, man, this is gonna be really hard. Don't know how to do it. There are risks involved, like any change. There's always risks. But on the flip side, the benefits that we saw from it was just tremendous. The ability to like grow and scale. So the flexibility you're providing to your people is also flexibility that you provide to your business. And the ability to like, when we have an opening, man, we just get it up and we get it out. And again, like you said, the pool becomes essentially anyone, right? Anyone with the right skill set. And it doesn't really matter where they are. It just opens up a whole lot more doors. What we've also found that was interesting, we didn't really expect this totally, but we were able to be more selective about the candidates that we did bring on because geography wasn't the primary driver for whether they were a fit. And so we actually got to hire more around our culture and really get a lot tighter with that in a way that I don't think we'd really been able to up to that point. When we're only working from a pool of people in a 20-mile radius of our office, and we have the luxury of being in a very sprawling city where 20-mile radius doesn't actually feel that big. I think some cities you're going to be like a 10-mile radius or 5-mile radius. But 20-mile radius, like there's just only so many creative professionals in that radius that are going to be a fit for us. And if you narrow that even further and you go, they need to align with our core values and they need to kind of think about things the way that we think about things and the way of doing work, the way we do work. Man, there's probably only like a tiny fraction of people in that 20-mile radius who fit all those qualifiers, not least skill sets, right? And then all of a sudden you open that up and you go, we can hire anybody in the United States. And we have a little bit of luxury. We could actually hire anybody in the world if we really wanted to. But not every industry is quite that open. But like, man, it just, every single person we brought in the door was like, yeah, here's the skills you need to have. Do you have those? Okay, now let's talk about core values. And we're having core values conversations right in the interview. And it's like, man, this is what we always wanted. This is what we've always been talking about and trying to do. And for the first time, it's like, we don't feel like we're handcuffed in having that conversation. So
I remember we have a client in downtown San Francisco, and they are a great CPA firm, but they're competing against an incredibly tough labor market.
Yeah. In
Market Street in downtown San Francisco. So they need to hire a tax manager, which is an incredibly challenging position to fill. It's challenging because there's not a lot of people out there that fit the role. And if you don't have this position filled in a 30-person tax firm, it causes all kinds of pain. All right. So I tell the managing partner, let's try remote. This is 4 years ago. Let's just go remote for the position. And he said, no way. So he kept the search, and we were the search partner. So both of us were trying to fill this job for a year and a half.
Oh, that's brutal.
It's brutal. Finally, in January of the next tax season, he called me and said, I give up. Find me someone remote. He hired somebody 3 weeks later in Philadelphia, other side of the country.
Yep.
Well, how do we make that work? I don't know, but that person's going to be a partner at this firm. And it's worked, and they have been thriving. And yes, so many things become difficult all of a sudden.
Yeah.
But they filled that essential role, and they're scaling the practice.
Yeah. And there's ways to overcome those challenges, right? And there's plenty of people that have already done it. I mean, I think one of the first things I did when we started considering going remote is I kind of looked through my network and I went, I know people who have either management roles or executive or even founder roles within companies that are fully remote, right? I've got a good friend who's chief of staff of a software company. They have 800 employees across the world. They've never had an office. They've been fully remote for almost 10 years they were founded on that principle. And I said, you're the first guy I'm going to call. Like, you're the first person. Because I'm like, you clearly have figured some things out. Because there are differences, right? There's no water cooler. There's no like serendipity, right? That just doesn't happen when you are fully remote. How do you do that? How do you overcome and maybe not manufacture those things? Because I don't think that's the right attitude either. I don't think it's like, oh, there's no water cooler, so we have a digital water cooler, a virtual water cooler. But I think you just have to think about work a little bit more intentionally in a way that maybe you didn't have to before, in the culture building and how do we make sure that there's still a sense of togetherness when we're not physically together. I think there's plenty of tools. There's plenty of resources. There's now tons of content. It's solvable. It's all very solvable.
I think we're in the era where even the middle of the bell curve are accepting remote work. And by remote, I mean hiring anybody in any location around the country, not just letting your people work from home in Tulsa, but someone at the firm should be delegated the leadership of the togetherness and the culture, pursuits of the business. And they are all different, and they're all very possible. And, that's plenty of content online on how to do that. My biggest piece of advice is design your firm now like you're a remote firm that happens to have an office. So you lead with that remote. So what I mean by that is, like, let's say you have a Zoom meeting, and if 9 of you are gathering in the conference room with one camera on, like the 2 remote people who, they might as well be in Siberia at this point, because the 9 people that really matter are at a conference table on the main. And the 2 poor souls that are on Zoom, they can't make out who anybody is at that conference table, and they can't really hear anybody. No, pretend you're a remote firm first. It happens to have an office. Everybody goes back to their office. The team meeting is done in a Zoom gallery view. It just happens that 7 of the people are sitting in the office and 2 of the people are sitting in their home office.
Yep.
Now we've got a more even playing field. We've got rules for our remote meetings. We've got an agenda for our remote meetings. And by the way, at our company, we start our remote meetings by having a personal conversation. How are your kids? Like, what's going on in your life? So there is a little bit of serendipity and personal connection there.
Yeah, you just have to be intentional about it. You got to you have to think about it a little bit more than you did before. But I love that. I think that's a great piece of advice. Think about it, for almost a remote first approach. And then, okay, yeah, we have an office. Okay, how does that fit in? How do we want to use that in a way that's going to benefit everyone?
I think if you run a firm, 50 to 75% of the next CPA and EA hires you make over the next decade will not live in the same city as you.
Yep.
That's where this is headed. It's there. So design your firm to be there first. This is a great opportunity. I mean, design your firm to move from FaceTime to trust as your principal operating ethos. Change the way you do meetings and the frequency of communications. Delegate way more leadership and responsibility to your teams. Give them the opportunity to grow the business. This isn't just about, if you hire remote people, you're going to save the firm. No, this is a chance to build this true next generation hybrid work environment where you understand that you're building an incredible workplace culture, that people will thrive in. There's enough people to fill the jobs in your firm if you change where you recruit, and there's enough love for the profession and enough demand for the jobs to hire every position in your firm. I am 100% certain of that. It's just the way you may be going about it may be wrong.
It's just finding and matching the right talent.
Right.
Yep. And if you take geography off the table, it just opens it all up.
Now, I'll tell you, a couple of things have changed in since the Great Resignation. So we used to get calls from recruiters in August to hire tax positions. The calendar's changed big time. You need to be hiring in May. The minute your firm emerges from a busy season, it becomes hiring season.
Yeah.
So May to August is now the new hiring season. By August, September, you're done. You should be locking in remote freelance tax and audit staff in the fall of the year, and get your tax and accounting hires done, in May, June, July. Even if you're not ready for them, they're off the market by Halloween. So start early. And we're seeing too, the pace of making hires is going up too. In other words, big firms are turning into hiring machines where on Monday they have a partner interviewing a candidate. On Wednesday, another partner is interviewing the candidate. Those partners have the authority to decide on a job offer, and they give a job offer on Friday. So these are 1 week hiring life cycles, right? So how are you competing against that?
Yeah.
And one of the ways to get around it is to assign responsibility to partners in the firm who have the ability to make job offers. And if the resume meets the minimum criteria, put that in front of the partner and get this. And I don't think you should hire people in a week. I think that's too fast, but you need to know that other firms that you're competing against are doing that right now.
Yep. Yeah. And that just means that there's more offers on the table, right? The longer you wait, the more offers or the more opportunity there is for someone else to snag that person.
Yeah. It's tough. It's tough right now. There's no doubt about it. The wages are going up. The time to fill is going down. We're helping to fill jobs, and those candidates are getting 2 or 3 offers from competitors, and so we're closing fewer of the positions that we used to fill. Okay, so what does that mean for a firm? It means anticipate this pain, budget into the fact that you will have more turnover. You will have people get to the offer stage and drop off at the last stage. It doesn't have to be a surprise anymore. In the middle of the Great Resignation, we have CPAs who are accepting remote jobs. They're getting shipped a laptop, and on the day they're supposed to start, they just no show. And everyone that's listening to this has a firm that's happened to in 2022. It enrages me that happens, but it's okay. It's part of our job market now. Make a business plan and a financial plan to deal with some of this pain because it's here for a while.
Yeah,
maybe longer. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see. Jeff, I feel like we could probably keep talking for hours on all this. I have like so many more questions I want to get to, but we are actually running out of time and we got to wrap this up. So thank you so much for coming on. I think there's plenty more conversations we could probably have in the future. So we'll circle back on that. But for those that want to, like, is there anything that you've got coming up that you want to let our audience know about? Maybe there's a special event, project, or something you're working on that our audience could check out.
Oh, sure. Thanks for the opportunity. I mean, the biggest thing is it's hiring season. If you want to hire, and it's in the time of year, which we're in now, probably when this podcast drops, consider Accountingfly. It's a staffing firm. We only fill remote jobs, but we fill hundreds of them a year. Our team is great. You can find me at jeff@accountingfly.com. And even if you're not interested in hiring Accountingfly, I'm always open to the conversations that we're talking about. And it's a subject near and dear to my heart. And if you're struggling, I'm always up for a quick chat.
That's awesome. I hope people take you up on that. It's jeff@accountingfly.com. For those that we'll just say it again, jeff@accountingfly.com. Well, Jeff, thank you so much for coming on the show. Is there anywhere else that if people want to find out more about you, where they can find you? Obviously your email, but maybe if they've got a website or somewhere else that you want to send people.
You got it. Yes. Twitter is @JeffPhillips_. I'm on LinkedIn. You can learn more about Accountingfly at accountingfly.com, or you can learn more about Paget at pagetbusinessservices.com. If you're thinking about starting a firm, we're an entrepreneurial factory for accounting firms, and I've been doing it for 60 years, showing firms the way how to build a successful firm. And it is including how to get hiring right. And it is an awesome business. So take a look at that as well.
That's awesome. I'll make sure we've got all those links will be in the show notes. So if people are online, you can check those out, and you can get links to all those places. Jeff, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. This has been a fantastic conversation. Well, this is it for another episode of Amplify, the podcast for accounting marketers. Thank you so much, all of you, for listening in. If you liked this episode, would you please consider giving us a glowing 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or wherever that you listen to podcasts? It would really help us out. It would help this show out to reach more people. And if you want to find out more about Amplify and all of our episodes, head over to accountingmarketing.org, and you'll find the podcast listed under the publications menu. If you'd like to find out more about me and my brand consultancy, Resound, head over to resoundcreative.com or just email me, mike@resoundcreative.com. And until next time.